Hello and welcome back to Reversible YouTube channel. Today we'll be learning how to make this reversible wide brim sun hat. It's very beautiful and simple to make. You just need to pay attention to the tutorial and I'm sure you're going to get it once you put it into practice. So it is reversible, it means you can rock it both inside. I used Ankara fabric for the outer part and the plain black fabric for the inner part. So this is the reverse side of the hat. Okay, it's very simple to make. If this is what you want to learn, stay on this channel and watch the tutorial till the end. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel, kindly subscribe and click on the notification bell so that you get notified anytime we upload a new video. Thank you. Okay, so to create a pattern for our hat, this hat usually have three parts: the top part, the middle part, and the brim, which will form the sun art style that we want to do. So now the edge circumference measurement that we took, we're going to divide it by 6.28, which is the formula to find the area of a circle, which is constant. So for me, the edge circumference that I'm working with is 22.5, and if I divide 22.5 by 6.28, it's going to give me around 3.58, which I'm going to be approximating to 3.6. okay, so the radius of my flare is going to be 3.6. okay, so in order to know the measurements that I'm going to use to fold my flare, I need to know the measurements of the brim. Okay, it depends on how wide you want your brims to be. It can be 4 inches, it can be 5, it can be 6 inches or more. So for me, I'm using 6 inches. And the radius that I'm working with is 3.6. So if I had 3.6 to 6 inches, it's going to give me 9.6. So there is no 9.6 here on the tape rule, so I'll be folding it by 9.75, which is 9.75. So that is what I'm going to be using to fold my flare. Okay, so just like we fold our normal 360 flare, you fold into 2 like this, and then you fold into 4. Remember, the total of the folding is 9.75, which is 9.75. okay, so now from my radius, I'm going to measure 9.75 round. This should be simple. So I'm measuring 9.75 round. So I measured that round, I made it into a cuff. Now I'm going to remove my top part, which is 3.6. okay, so I measure 3.5 and a bar. If we look at the tape rule, we have 3. This is 3.5. This is 3.75. So I'm going to measure measurement around here. So that is what I'm going to take around for my top part. Okay, so I've measured the top part, which is 3.6, and this is my brim, which is 6 inches. So I'm going to cut this now. I'm going to cut this off now. So it's remaining the middle part. We have our top part and the brim ready. Like I said, it's very simple to make. Okay, so this is going to be our brim, and this is going to be the upper part of the hat. So now I'm going to cut the middle part. Okay, so for the middle part, remember the edge circumference is 22.5. So I'm going to be dividing that into 2. So that's going to give me 11.25. So I'm going to add 1/4 inch to 11.25 as allowance, and then to make it a total of 11.5 inches. So I'm going to measure 11.5 inches like this. That is my head circumference divided by 2, which means I'm going to be cutting this on fold. Remember, this is half of the edge circumference, and the width of the brim of the mid part is between, it can be 3 inches, 4 or 5 inches. So I'll be going with 4.5 inches. Okay, 4.5 inches by 11.5. So I'm going to make this into a straight line. Okay, so this is 4.5 like this by 11.5. So on this part I'm going to be going up by 1.5 inch. To 11.5 here, and on the other middle part too, I'll also go by 11.5, so that it will give me a total of my 4.5 inch back. To 1.5 up here and 1.5 up here. So using a slightly curved ruler, I'm going to connect this to the main part here. I'm doing this because the head is round, it's not totally just sharp like that. So on the down part also, I'll connect the 1.5 inch hub that I have here. I'll connect it to this side like this. Okay, so if we still measure it, we still have the same 4.5 inches that we started with. Remember, we came up by 1.5 here and we have replaced it by 1.5 here. We connected it. So before I cut this out, I'm just going to go in from here by 1/2 inch. Half or quarter of an inch, I'll be going in by just 1/2 inch here, and then I'll be blending these two. Remember, this is no longer our base, this is our new starting point. So I'll be blending this to my starting point like this. So this is what I'll be cutting out as my middle part. And remember, I said this is half of our head circumference, so it means this side will be cut on fold in order for it to make up our full round head. So I'll be cutting this out now. So now we are done with our pattern. This is the middle part. This is the top part, and this is the brim. So these are the 3 patterns that we need. I'm going to be replicating this on my preferred fabric now. Okay, so now I've transferred all my patterns to my fabric. This is the top part of our fabric. You can see it is exactly the same, as you can see. So this is the top. Now for this top, I cut one as my main fabric, I cut this plain as my lining, and I cut these 2 interfaces. I have 2 interfaces because this one is very soft. If you're working with a strong interface, you just need just one to probably attach to either your main fabric or your lining. Okay, so this is the top part. I have 2 fabrics, one to serve as my main fabric, one for lining, and 2 interfaces because they are not so strong and we need it to be a bit hard. Okay, so for the brim, I did the same. I cut my main fabric and my lining, and I cut 2 interfaces because I'm using the same interface. In fact, the brim, if you have a harder interface, you can make it stronger so that it can stand well. That is the main reason why we are adding interfacing to it. Okay, and this is the middle part also. I did the same. I cut on fold. Remember, I said you're going to be cutting on fold. So this side that I marked with arrow, I folded it. You can see it is cut on fold, so that by the time I open this up, it will be enough to go around the head. And I cut 2 fabrics, one for lining and one for main fabric, and also 2 interfaces. So now I'm going to take this to the ironing table to attach my interface to my lining before I start the sewing proper. So I've ironed interfacing to all of them, and here they are. So now we're going to start the sewing. The first sewing will be on the middle piece. I'm just going to bring it together like this, and then I'm going to sew it here. Then after sewing the middle piece together, I'll bring the top part, and then I'm going to sew it on top of it like this. So I'll take this to the sewing machine now and join this. Okay, so I'm going to sew it here. Like I said, I've sewn it, and this is what the middle piece looks like. So now the next thing is to introduce the top part and place it on the middle part and pin it round like this. So I'll keep pinning it like this. You can see it has to fit into the space. So you pin it round to fit it in the space, then you take it to the sewing machine and sew it. So now I've pinned it round, both of them. I'm just going to take this to the sewing machine now and sew it round like this, both for the lining and the main fabric. Okay, so I've sewn this round now. As we can see, the method you can use to make it easier for you is to notch it at 4 cardinal points like I did. So you just need to match your notches together so that it will be easier for you to match them. Once you are done sewing like this, you just need to turn it out. And when you turn it out, you have something like this. Okay, so when you have this, I'm still going to notch this the same way I did for the upper parts by taking it together. I've notched, as you can see, I've notched it here, 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 and here for my 4. So now I'm going to bring in my brim, and I also fold into 4 and notch my brim also into 4. You can see my notches here, here, and here. So I notch it at 4 points. So I'm going to be matching the 4 points together, and then I'll pin it before I now take it to the sewing machine and sew. So everything that I've done on the main fabric here, I'm going to do it on the lining also separately before I use them to turn each other. Remember, I said it's going to be reversible, so there won't be any rough edges showing outside. That is why I'm taking pains to do it separately. Assuming this is not reversible, I'm just going to sew everything together like the way I sewed the cap. I'll put the lining inside, then I'll turn the brim separately and then sew them, but I don't want to do that. That's why I'm doing this separately. So now I take this to the sewing machine now, and then I'm going to sew my brim to my cap. So I've sewn the flare around it also, and you can see what we have here. So like I said, everything that I did here, I also did for the lining separately because I want to use them to turn each other. So the next thing I'll do now is to use the lining to face the main fabric, right side facing right side, so that I can sew it around. So I'll just take it like that, and I'm going to be following my notches. So I'll match everything together, and then I'm going to sew it around like this, and then I'll leave little space. I'll leave little space here for me to turn it out so that it can be neatly finished. I hope you understand. So I'm just trying to tuck this in so that it will be easy for me to sew. Okay, so once I tuck this in, I'm going to be sewing this round like this, and then leave little space here for me to turn it out. Okay, now so I've sewn it round like I said, right side facing right side, and then I left this small space. So it is through this space that I'm going to bring everything out. But before I do that, I want to notch it round so that I can lie flat very well. Remember, it's a curve. Good. So now I've notched it round. I'm just going to open this up, put my hand, and try to bring out everything. Okay. So I've turned everything out now through this small hole. The next thing now is to close this hole. You can either close it by tacking with needle and thread. You can see it's already going in on its own. But before I close it, I like to iron it. I like to iron these edges flat first so that it will be easier for me to close. So After ironing it, I'm going to be top stitching it round, just to give it some form of beauty again. And our cap is ready. So you can see you can wear it both inside and out, because it is neatly finished both inside and out. And you can see how simple it is to make this. So I'm going to iron this now, top stitch it, and then bring it back to show us. Okay, so I have top stitched it. As you can see, it has been top stitched and ironed. You can see how beautiful this is looking. So I'll bring it to the head of the mannequin now, and I'm going to place it on the head. So placing it on the head, this is what it looks like. And you can see how beautiful this is. Okay, and like I said, it is reversible, which means you can turn it to the other side also and still rock it. Okay, so this is the plain side. I can see it is also neatly finished, just like the right side of the fabric. Okay, so I just to beautify it more, I made a 1-inch width rope. The length can be as long as you want. And on one side I have my plain black fabric, and on the other side I have the Ankara fabric. So I'm just going to tie this on the head. Okay, so this is what it looks like after tying the rope on it. So this plain side is what you tie when you are wearing the art on the Ankara surface, and you tie the Ankara part on the plain surface. You can see how lovely this is looking.